All right. So the review. Sorry about this down here. It's this new setting on the computer I'm trying to get fixed. So this is a review for chapter 9. This is the main stuff you're going to need to know. Okay. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. Sohcahtoa. Okay. All right. And then our special triangles. 45, 45, 90 is the easiest because it's a isosceles triangle. So the sides are the same, and all you do is multiply by radical 2 if you're getting bigger. And if you're getting smaller, you divide by radical 2. A little bit more work for the 30, 60, 90. You always want to start with the small side. If you're going to the larger side, not the largest, larger, you're going to multiply by radical 3. If you're going the opposite direction, obviously you're getting smaller, you're going to divide by radical 3. If you're going to the hypotenuse, which is the longest side, you simply multiply by 2. And if you're going this direction, you divide by 2. And then the classic a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, simplifying radicals. You're going to use the sheet on your desk, the reference sheet, to break this down. So you're looking for magic numbers, perfect squares that go into 72. Working backwards, you're going to find out that 36 times 2. Now remember, this is radical 36 times radical 2. I suggest you put the perfect square number first. That's the number you're going to simplify. The square root of 36 is 6, leaving the radical 2 inside. Okay. These are numbered weird. I guess we're going to go straight down. 143. Okay. 143. You're looking for numbers to go in there. That's a magic number. Now, on this one, it's kind of a trick question because the only two numbers that make 143 are 11 times 13. And those are both prime numbers. So that can't be broken down into any perfect squares because the only two numbers that make 143 are 11 and 13. So this one is simplified already. 5 times root 60. Don't forget this 5 is out here. I suggest you write the 5 to remind yourself to bring it out here. 60, you're looking for a magic number that goes into 60. Okay? So you just, whoops, should not have happened. You just take your calculator and you try, 60 divided by, well, 49 is the next smallest number. That's obviously not going to go in. 36, no. 25, no. 16, no. And then you try 60 divided by 9, no. Oops. 60 divided by 4. And there you have it, 4 times 15. So that's 4 and 15. Remember, they're both radical. Square root of 4 is 2 times square root of 15. Then you multiply these two numbers. So the final answer is 10 radical 15. All right? Negative 9. Don't forget to bring that down. Now, 36 is a perfect square. It's just 6. So this ends up being negative 54, no radical answer at all. Because, again, 36 is a perfect square. All right, number 5. Outside times outside, 12. Now, there's two ways to do this problem, and I'll show you both. Inside times inside, 8 times 4 is 32. Okay, and then 32, you're going to break it down. That's going to be 16 and 2, both radicals. Don't forget to bring this 12 down. The square root of 16 is 4. So our final answer is 12 times 4 is 48 radical 2. Now, If you recognized that this is actually just 2, you can simplify that first. That makes this 12. Okay. Now, it doesn't really save time exactly because you're still going to get 24 radical 8, and this gets broken down this way. So it doesn't really save time. You still end up with the same answer. It's just a different way of going about it. And some people like to simplify wherever they can first. Okay? All right, number 6. We have a radical in the bottom. Okay? Now, there's 2 ways to go about this. You can just get rid of the radical by rationalizing. Okay? What that gives you on the top is simply 6 radical 12. On the bottom, you just get 12, and then you're going to simplify. So that's radical 12 over 2. The other way is you could have simplified this first and taken out the radical 4 and had a smaller number to rationalize, but you're still going to get to the same answer. Now, some of you might want to start off right off the bat by doing this. And while that will get you the right answer, there's no reason to do that. Because just like 6 divided by 3 equals 2, remember the magic trick. Radical 6 divided by radical 3 is radical 2. This simplifies. That divides into radical 6. So we just end up with 3 radical 2. Once again, you could have done it the other way. It just would have been more work. All right, now this one throws people off sometimes. I would suggest you do this if you have trouble with these problems. And then you simply do outside times outside, inside times inside, the radical disappears, and that ends up being 50. All right, Pythagorean Theorem. As I've suggested, I think you should always write a squared plus b squared equals c squared first. And identify where your c is. Some of you are still having trouble just throwing the 2 numbers you see in. All right, a lot of people still in the quiz were doing 6 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. Identify that c. So in this one, it's going to be a squared or x squared, doesn't matter, plus 6 squared equals 8 squared. A squared plus 36 equals 64. Next mistake is some people are adding 36 and 64 and getting 100, which is nice because then you get 10. But let's say you did that. Let's think about that. Let's say you added 36 to 64, you got 100, and you square root and you got 10. Does this make sense? The hypotenuse is the longest side. There's no way the answer for one of the legs can be 10 if the hypotenuse is 8. So that should tell you you made a mistake right off the bat. So we need to subtract 36, which gives me a squared equals 28. Square root. Now we're going to simplify. Okay, this is 4 times 7. Radical 4 times radical 7. Square root of 4 is 2 radical 7. And if you multiply that out in a calculator, you will get a number less than 8, and that makes sense. It'll be a decimal, okay? But it says leave exact answers, no decimals. So that is the answer. Number 11. Again, a squared plus b squared equals c squared real quickly. Identify your c. A squared plus 10 squared equals 26 squared. Okay, that's a squared plus 100 equals 26 squared. I'm not a human calculator. So 26 squared is 676. Subtract 100, I get a squared equals 576. Well, first off, check and see if that's a perfect square. So second square root, 576. It is. So your answer is x equals 24, or a equals 24, doesn't matter. But notice, smaller than 26, the largest side. So our answer is good. Number 10, on this one, again, we have c, so be careful. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if you want to, you can put x squared plus 11 squared equals 15 squared. That's x squared plus 121 equals 225. We subtract 121 and we get x squared equals 104. Now 104 is not a perfect square, so we have to find out what goes into it. When we do that, we find out that it's only 4 and 26, radicals both. So x equals square root of 4 is 2 times the square root of 26. And the last one over here. No, we cannot assume this is a 30, 60, 90. We go with the Pythagorean Theorem. Okay? Here's my right angle. We're looking for the hypotenuse this time, finally. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So 4 squared plus 4 root 3 in parentheses squared equals c squared. Now you got to be careful with this one. Okay, 4 squared is easy. That's 16. 4 root 3, remember we did one of these before, might want to come over and do something like this. 4 times 4 is 16. This is just 3, so that's 48. Equals c squared. So 16 plus 48 is 64. Square root, we end up with a perfect square this time, again, so our answer is 8. Now, just for the heck of it, if you look at this, 4 doubled is root 8. 4 times root 3 is 4 root 3. This is a 30, 60, 90 triangle, but we could not assume that just by looking at it. So this is our 30, and this is our 60. Because you go from the small side to the hypotenuse by doubling it, and you go from the small side to the medium side by tacking on a root 3. So it did end up being a 30, 60, 90. Speaking of 30, 60, 90s, okay, this got printed wrong. Here's the 30 degrees right here, which means we have the small side. That's great. Where's our hypotenuse? Right there. Going from here to here, we simply double. Going from here to here, we multiply by radical 3, which means we just tack it on, and we're done. All right, in this one, we have the hypotenuse. We always want to go to the small side first, and make sure you identify which side's which. Some of you got them backwards on the quiz, so be careful of that. Here's my small side. So if I want to go from here to here, I divide by 2, 13. And then when I go from here to here, I multiply by radical 3. So this is 13 radical 3, and I'm finished. Now, the most challenging of all, I start off with the medium side. Here's my hypotenuse. I want to go to the small side first. I need to divide by radical 3, which means it's going to be a little bit of work. So I do 24 divided by radical 3. I have to rationalize. That gives me 24 radical 3 over 3, but this simplifies to 8. Now, going from the smallest side to the hypotenuse, remember, we just double, and we only do outside times outside. So 2 times 8 is 16. The radical 3 stays radical 3. Now this last one here is kind of tricky. I'll give you that. We actually have to draw a line down here and make this into a square. So this is going to be the same thing here. That means this is 13, which means this is 7. Well, this is the 30-degree angle here. So this is my small side. This is the hypotenuse. So that makes this 14. Okay? So you're just taking the small side, which is opposite to 30, and doubling it. And then here we have a square, so x is 13. Okay, now we're going backwards to the easier ones. 45, 45, 90. Hypotenuse. We're getting smaller, which means we divide by radical 2. So that's simply 8 divided by radical 2, and then we rationalize. So that gives me 8 radical 2 over 2. 2 goes into 8 4 times, so each of the legs is 4 radical 2. And then obviously this is 45 up here. All right, here we have 45 right here. Here's my hypotenuse. Going from here to here, we're getting bigger, and the magic number is radical 2. So 6 radical 2 times radical 2. Remember, this simply becomes 2. So that makes this 12. And that is the same because it's an isosceles triangle. Number 18 tells us 45, 45, 90 because these are equal. All right, so obviously 45 degrees, 45 degrees. And the only thing to do now is go from the leg to the hypotenuse, multiply by radical 2, which simply means write 11 and tack on a radical 2. That's all we do. When we're going from the hypotenuse, we have a square here. Here we have those marking this is the 45, 45, 90. When we're going from the hypotenuse to a leg, we're getting smaller. The magic number is radical 2. So therefore, we have 6 radical 3. Sorry, that just kind of blew up there. 6 radical 3 divided by radical 2. Now, radical 2 does not go into radical 3, so I have to rationalize. Now, what does that give me on the top? This is radical 6. On the bottom, we just get 2. That simplifies to 3. So each of the legs is 3 radical 6. And that goes all the way around, obviously, because it's a square. All right, evaluating Sohcahtoa, solve the missing side or angle. All right, so here we are at the angle. We have the hypotenuse, which is h, so we know we're either using sine or cosine. What do we have? Do we have the opposite or adjacent? Well, this side is all the way over there. That's the opposite side. That means we're doing sine. Sine of 41 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Now this is the easy one when you simply do 8 times sine of 41. It says round your angles to whole numbers and side to 3 decimal places. So we're going to take our calculator and do 8 times sine of 41. So 3 decimal places, 248. 5.248. $24. Again, we know we have the hypotenuse. Here's the angle, but we're looking at the side right next to it. So that's adjacent. So that's cosine. Cosine of 40 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Again, this is the easier version when you just simply multiply by 14. So you take your calculator and do 14 times cosine of 40. $10.7246. The 6 makes the 4 round up. So 725. 10.725. All right. Notice we do not have the hypotenuse. From this angle, we're trying to find the opposite. We have the adjacent. That's tangent. Tangent of 55 equals opposite, unknown, over adjacent, 11. Again, this is the easier one. You just multiply by 11. So 11 times tangent of 55. 11 times tangent 55. 15.7096. The 6 makes this round up to 10, so it's going to be 710. 15.710. And yes, we put the 0 there because it says 3 decimal places. All right, from this angle, what do we have? We don't have the hypotenuse. We have opposite, and here's adjacent. So we're doing tan again. Tangent of 26 equals opposite over adjacent. Now, this is one of those tricky ones when x is in the bottom. So what do? We switch these two. X equals 10 divided by tangent of 26. So take our calculator and do 10 divided by tangent of 26. So that's 20.503. 20.503. That's x. All right, here's our angle. Hypotenuse. This one is right next door, so that's adjacent. That's cosine. Cosine of 37 is adjacent over hypotenuse. Again, x is in the bottom, so we switch. X equals 7 divided by cosine of 37. Pull up the calculator. 7 divided by cosine 37. 8.7649 makes the 4 round up. So 8.765. That's the hypotenuse right there. And last one of these right here. Here's our angle. We do have the hypotenuse again. Okay. And from 52, 10 is all the way over here, opposite. Cosine. Sorry, sine. I don't know why I did that. Sine is so. Cosine is ca. I need an A. So sine of 52 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Again, the switcheroo. X equals 10 divided by sine of 52. Not a 3. I don't know why I wrote that. Take our calculator. 10 divided by sine 52. 12.690. And again, that makes sense because it is the hypotenuse and it is bigger than 10. So it is the longest side. All right, application problems. Draw a picture. All special right triangles need to have exact answers. So that means no decimals. A 40-foot tree fell against a 15-foot tall house. So here's my house. House 15 feet high. A 40-foot tree fell against it. How far is the base of the tree, right there, from the house? So we're trying to find that. 90-degree angle, no 30, 60, 90, no 45, 45, 90. This is Pythagoras. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. My hypotenuse, be careful, is 40. So a squared plus 15 squared equals 40 squared. A squared plus 225 equals 1600. Subtract 225, 1600 minus 200 is 1400, so that's 1375. That's a big number, so you're going to use your green sheet to find out what goes into it. And I'm having some technical difficulties here. And when you square root that, I don't know why I was writing it squared there. This is going to break down to 25 and 55. So 25 becomes 5. Square root of 25 is 5, and root 55. And the only thing that goes into 55 is 5 times 11. Both of those are prime. We're done. We're leaving our answer like that. No decimals. A boy builds a ramp that is 12 feet long. So here's our ramp, 12 feet long. And stacks it up on tops of bricks that are 6 feet high. 6 feet high. What is the angle between the ramp and the ground? We're trying to find this angle right here. Now, what do we have? We have hypotenuse, and from here we have opposite. That's sine. So sine of some angle, remember theta, or we could name it A or whatever, equals opposite over hypotenuse. So remember, when we're trying to find the angle, we're going to do inverse sine, or second sine. And then 6 divided by 12, you might already see that that's 1/2. You could type in 1/2. You could type in 0.5. It doesn't matter. That is the same thing. And you'll find out it's 30 degrees. Which makes sense because in a 30, 60, 90, here's the small side. Double is 12. $29. A girl standing 50 feet from a building. So here's the building. She's standing 50 feet. The angle of elevation is 75 degrees. How tall is the building? Well, here's the angle. This is the adjacent side. Hypotenuse is up here. We're not doing hypotenuse. That means we're doing tangent. That is the opposite side. So, tangent of 75 equals opposite over adjacent. I don't know why I didn't write 50. So again, this is the easy one where we just simply multiply by 50 on both sides. So we take our calculator and do 50 times tangent of 75. Now, what did it say to do? This is not a special right triangle, so we're going to just round. So 186.6 feet. If it did say round to the nearest whole number, it'd be 187 feet. A rectangle has a height of 8 and a length of 12. Find the diagonal. That's kind of a bad diagonal, but go for it. All right. So it's a 90-degree angle. we're trying to find the diagonal, which is the hypotenuse. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 8 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. That's 64 plus 144 equals c squared. That's 208. Okay, so we're going to square root and try to find what goes into 208. Now, 208 is one of those dangerous numbers where you go, oh, I bet you 4 goes into it, and it does. But a bigger number goes in, and that's 16. So we always want to go backwards and try to find the biggest number. So this becomes 4 radical 13. So that's the hypotenuse, 4 radical 13. A rectangle has a length of 10 and a diagonal of 18. Find the height. Okay. Well, again, this is a right angle because it's a rectangle. That's my hypotenuse here. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. X squared plus 10 squared equals 18 squared. This is 100. 18, I don't know why I wrote 18 squared again. That's silly of me. I can't remember what 18 squared is. I should know it, but 18 squared is 324. Subtract 100. Subtract, because we're moving it over. Remember, don't add the numbers on the opposite sides. X squared equals 224. We square root. We have to break down and find out what magic number goes into 24. Okay? Most of you are going to want to do 4, but go backwards. In this case, it's 16 again times 14. So the square root of 16 is 4, and radical 14 just stays the same. A square with a diagonal of 12. Find the length of each side. Well, if it's a square, that means it's a 45, 45, 90. If we're going from the hypotenuse to this side, we divide by radical 2. We must rationalize that, which simply gives us 12 radical 2 over 2. That simplifies, so each of the sides is 6 radical 2, and we leave it like that. 33. An equilateral triangle has an altitude of 12. So equilateral triangle, remember, that's a 60, 60, 60. We drop the altitude down here, that makes this a 30. The altitude they're giving us is 12. Find the length of each side. Okay, well, 12, let's take this separate here. This is my 60. 12 is opposite my 60. So next I want to go to my 30, my small side here. So I need to go to the small side by dividing by radical 3. I need this to find the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse of this is the side of the major triangle. So 12 divided by radical 3 needs to be rationalized. So that gives me 12 radical 3 over 3. This becomes 4. So this is 4 radical 3. I double that, 8 radical 3. So that means each of these sides of this triangle is 8 radical 3. All right, the last few. They're in order, but remember, this is your C. So we're going to do 3 squared plus 9 squared, leave a blank, 11 squared. So that's 9 plus 81, 121. That's 90 and 121. 121 is greater. When the c squared is greater, that's obtuse. Here we have 10 squared plus 14 squared equals 16 squared. Nope, not equals. We don't know. Leave a blank. 10 squared is 100 plus 14 squared is 196. I just did 16 squared and I forgot what it was already. I thought I did. Oh well. 16 squared. Yeah, 256. So this is 296 compared to 256. The hypotenuse, the c squared, is smaller, so that's acute. Gee, I wonder what this one's going to be. 9 squared plus 12 squared equals 15 squared. 81 plus 144, I did not mean to put equals, it's habit, sorry. 225. This ends up being 225, 225, but this one ends up being equal, so that's a right triangle. And that is it for that review.